If something isn't on the first 2 pages of Google, does it even exist? That was one of the questions that was posed to us in conversation back this summer at the Recruiting Automation Summit by one of our guests and speakers, Mohsen Bayati. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to share that with you listeners up until this point because, this year has flown by. The last handful of episodes, of course, have been live from the show floor at HR Tech. Now that we've wrapped that up and we're starting to get towards the end of 2018, as crazy as that may seem, we realized, darn, we should really share these with our listeners. So that's what we're going to be doing right now. This next episode covers the unforeseen consequences of AI, and it was a really cool exploration of the potential downfalls or just kind of scariness that surrounds artificial intelligence. Before we get started, I also wanted to quickly mention, as we approach the end of the year, I know a ton of professionals in our space are thinking about how are we going to get to our goals next year as we move into 2019. To best make those decisions, we need data. And Intel is actually embarking upon our second annual Recruiting Trends Report. This report in the past has been used by a ton of different outlets and professionals to help them make better decisions. But for us to be able to get even better data, I'm imploring you, our wonderful listeners, to go out and fill out the survey. If you do fill it out, there are a couple chances to win some gift cards as well. Who wouldn't like a little bit extra holiday cash? Heyo. But more than that, you'll be contributing to really fundamental research as to how recruiters do our job, how talent acquisition professionals can not only think about technology, not only think about people, but also think about process. It's the kind of surveys and reports and findings like these that really make a difference in how we do our jobs. So again, if you're at all interested, would love for you to take part in that survey. You can find more information if you go to intello.com/podcasts. We'll have a link right there where you can sign up. It shouldn't take much more than a handful of minutes, and sincerely, we thank you. So with that, let's dive into the episode, taking you back summer of this year, Recruiting Automation Summit.
Do you want to add value to your business, or do you want to just be this administrative person?
And often, if you look at your talent team and the caliber of talent in your company, they correlate.
You could hire the best person for the job if they were in your candidate pool.
All these individual employees, one by one, together, their voices all come together to articulate the culture of the company.
If somebody asks me how is AI changing the world, at the end of the day, AI makes every decision we make more informative.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Sean Simmerly, your host with Hiring on All Cylinders, back for another installment of technology, talent, recruiting, and just the broader trends affecting employment and all things related to recruiting. Today, we're located again at the Village here on Market Street in San Francisco. The Recruiting Automation Summit is underway, and it's been a blast thus far. Really excited to have one of our panelists, one of our breakout specialists, Mohsen Bayati, who is an associate professor of operations, information, and technology at Stanford, joining me for this rendition. Mohsen, thank you so much for joining.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So one of the common themes right now, especially at the Recruiting Automation Summit, is around AI, machine learning, and kind of the impacts as it relates to recruiting automation, recruiting in general, and employment. And your session that you were partaking in was about the risk of implementing machine learning. That's correct, right?
Yes, unforeseen costs of AI. Exactly.
Unforeseen costs of AI. So I guess on the highest level, what are some of the unforeseen costs of AI?
So some of the unforeseen costs are, one, I would say this is not unforeseen. One worry is jobs being eliminated.
Yep, we've heard that.
So, and there are some jobs that are maybe easy to say they could be eliminated, easy, repeatable tasks. For example, just in retail, big stores, like having employee that taking a survey of how many people are currently in the store.
Yeah.
How many people are checking each aisle? So now these things can be automated through cameras, and they have image recognition. They can even tell how many people passed by a certain product. So that is automated now.
Yeah.
But then there are these unforeseen, I would say, or unexpected ones, which are the ability, I would say, to stay objective, meaning AI processes data and gives us recommendation, but these recommendations can be wrong.
Yeah.
We know AI can make mistakes. The reason we like them is, on average, they make less mistakes than we do, but they do make mistakes. And sometimes, it's interestingly enough, they make very bizarre mistakes. You probably remember this, the game of Go. The world champion was beaten by this AlphaGo algorithm by Google DeepMind. And in one of the games, the world champion won. And the machine made a very bizarre move and, in fact, lost. So and that move was very obvious to all professional or even non-so-professional players that this was a bad move.
Yeah.
So it's important to understand that AI can make mistakes and can even make bad mistakes. So the unforeseen, I would say, or unintended consequence could be, in next generation, all of our sources of information are AI empowered. We may just take everything as correct.
Yeah.
And we may just, our mistakes will be magnified by assuming the true source is the AI recommendation. If everybody thinks something that is not on Google doesn't exist, like if I search and I don't find something on first page or even like first 2 pages, that doesn't, I think that doesn't exist. So that's one issue. Or the next generation of children, they may think Wikipedia is 100% correct.
Yeah.
But we all know that's not the case.
Definitely not the case.
Or if we want to buy a new type of product that we never bought before, like we just probably search it on Amazon and then we find, something has 2,000 reviews and it's all 5 stars, then we may think, okay, that seems to be the right product. But what if this is a completely new type of product that Amazon entered in? So there aren't many of existing good type of products on Amazon. So we would be missing out. Yeah. So that's, I would say, using AI in our day-to-day lives, we may lose the ability to stay objective and to think because AI just makes our life easy and we just think that's the true source of information.
Yeah, and I can see that being definitely dangerous. And there are a couple of things I want to kind of dive into there. But the first, I mean, you're talking about, Google search results. And if it's not on the first 2 pages, well, it doesn't exist. And I mean, I know, like, if something's not on the first page of Google, like, how many times am I going to go deeper and deeper down? How does that represent itself as an implication for candidates? Like, how does that impact candidates that might not be representing themselves accurately?
Yes, exactly. So that will be, so Google, companies like Google or search engines, they try to run experiments, meaning they try to make sure why, so they will have human evaluators. So you can, with an experiment, have like maybe for a small fraction of your data, like they actually search queries, you can have these humans evaluate the search results and see was this correct? Did the true result show up? But this is a very expensive process. Yeah. So now thinking about how to automate the experimentation itself, which is in fact a very popular word these days in the tech industry. You see websites do A/B testing, meaning they just modify the configuration to see which configuration is the best one for the customers. So running experimentations, meaning let's have intentional, I would say, cases where you break the AI decision-making loop. You may even make it completely random. So now this depends on the application. If it's healthcare and you're making treatment recommendation, you cannot recommend a random treatment. No. But in many applications, I would say in online world, people do this. Like you can even have a random ad shown to a user because you really want this new ad to be checked by the audience. So experimentation is one way to, one of the approaches to somehow reduce these problems.
Yeah. And I mean, that's still on kind of the employer side of the equation, making sure that things are being surfaced accurately. And Intel is lucky enough to be trying to address that through kind of the new Intel insights and the different search algorithms. So understanding that's definitely not a perfect science yet. Do you see there being anything from a candidate perspective that, that individuals can possibly focus on to possibly alleviate some of that subjectivity currently present in the AI process?
So yeah, that is a very good question. In fact, I think from the candidate's perspective, so there may be because let's say there are AI empowered recruiting systems. Now there may be AI empowered resume builder systems.
Yeah.
Now if we go through those systems, we may end up probably all resumes will look similar. So from a candidate perspective, we want to actually, if the system builds my resume, you should have, if I'm a candidate, I should just try to push back and say, why did the system actually build my resume like this? It may not be necessarily representative of me, and I need to modify it. So being able to understand that the system, even though makes good suggestions, but the final decision maker is me, and I need to really think carefully, what is my goal? What are my skills? What am I after? And modify the AI recommendations based on my objectives. This would be a good sanity check.
Yeah. Well, and it goes, we were talking earlier about, driverless cars, right? And is that going to replace the driver, or is it going to be drivers learning how to drive driverless cars? Could we maybe dive in there a little bit? And what does this new technology mean for candidates as far as the skills that they have, the skills that they need to learn, and also that fear, like you were alluding to, of, well, is this job going to go away entirely?
So I would say, so candidates should be, there are multiple things here. This is a very great question, and there are multiple elements here. One is there are certain jobs that possibly could be eliminated, and yes, a candidate in that category should be thinking about it.
Yeah.
And the example of running surveys in a retail store is a good one, right? But that same candidate can now think about, wait a second, the same retail store would probably need somebody to look at the data from the cameras and then look at the statistics generated and then understand how to modify the displays based on that data, because certain product was not viewed as much. So the same candidate, the same job evolved to a different job. So I think these are the areas that candidates should be very proactive about researching the market, understanding what is changing, how technology is shaping the job that was performed, and how can they acquire new skills. So in this case, the person was maybe running surveys on a piece of paper. Now all they need to do is to be able to understand Excel maybe a little bit and make charts and maybe even make some PowerPoint presentations to the managers in the store that, hey, this is the statistics of certain aisles. So then the candidates should try to acquire those skills, and then or put them on the resume. So these are, I would say, this is one type, and the other types, I would say, the job will not change much, will be more just empowered by AI. So in fact, a lot of current cars have radar technology that gives you a warning when you're approaching a vehicle.
I've seen that.
So this is I would say this is a good example to look at all the other applications. So I don't think candidates in those domains would need to be worried much, meaning the driver is just doing the driving that used to do. It's just now getting new pieces of information.
Sure.
And I think most of the applications of AI we see are these days, and candidates in those domains, they need to see if the new piece of information requires further analysis, then maybe they need to acquire the skills, but in most of the times, no.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be worried if I was such a candidate.
Yeah, I mean, AI can be seen as enabling as opposed to a threat.
Yes.
Yeah, it just makes your process that much easier.
Yes. And in general, all jobs are going to be evolved with AI, just the level of evolution, how much is it? And do I need to acquire new skills? I would say, being able to work with AI. Do I need to learn new things, new ways of working with AI or not? Do I need to learn data analysis skills? Do I need to learn working with new equipment? Do I need to learn, I would say, make presentations? These are, I would say, the key factors here from a candidate's perspective. And I think Entelo is doing a great job in empowering the candidates, providing them these type of informations, because you can see as a if you have access to like large scale, like you can see the recruiter side, you can see candidate side, you should be able to make these recommendations to the users.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about empowering and giving information so that individuals can be more effective in their jobs.
Yes, and in general, like in summary, if somebody asks me how is AI changing the world, at the end of the day, AI makes every decision we make more informative. Just gives us more information to make a better decision. That's in summary. Like many decisions are being made. There was a talk today by Billy Bean.
Yeah, it was great.
I mean, that was a clear example. He was saying there are these great players that they were good at certain things, but they were undervalued because they were viewed as how they look and do they have like a romantic story, you know? So now those players are, so the hiring decision is much more informative, and those, I would say that these players are not undervalued anymore. So the decision to hire is a much more informative decision.
Yeah.
And that's like, I would say the summary of application, the way AI is changing everything. Like it just makes us more informative in our decision making.
Yeah, 100%. So I guess more informed, that's great. You can begin kind of taking those signals to possibly become a better recruiter or become a better engineer, whatever it might be. One kind of extra area that I'm curious about is that, you know, we're not necessarily 100% certain about how the AI functions, right? I might surface that information that, oh, the car ahead of me is stopping and I should probably stop as well. But what is necessarily triggering that, and what leads to those mistakes? How can we begin to understand what is happening in that AI process, and what does that necessarily impact?
That's an excellent question. In fact, a domain that is active in academia as well as in industry is how can we make AI more interpretable, more understandable? How did AI make a suggestion or made a decision if they made a decision? So we need to be able to unravel this black box, which for example, there's one algorithm that most machine learning tools these days are using, which is called deep learning. This algorithm is very hard to understand what it is doing, but many companies are using it because its predictions are very good.
Yeah.
So, but this is, I just used that example to say, now we need to be able to, so from a research perspective, academia perspective, we need to be able to build counterparts of that algorithm that are much more interpretable. And, so we would, and even if the accuracy is a little less, but very small, but we can understand how much we are giving away on the accuracy versus gaining on the interpretability. If we can quantify those differences, then in business, we can actually choose which one we want. And now, at the end of the day, I would say, for a user of an AI system, being able to, when we get a recommendation, ideally also get why. Why did the system come up with this decision? So you don't want to, so there's one issue to worry about here is if you start like putting all these whys, then we may have this information overload problem as well. So it's very important to like be very concrete. Like we all have seen like our Google Maps can give us a ton of information, but it gives very like, as every day we see like new pieces of information are being added. And they're useful, like you put a destination and it shows you other alternatives, but in gray and say like similar ETA or not, right? So that's additional information. So you kind of understand a little more. And now, so in like the Google Map example, can we have whys? You know, the self-driving car takes a special turn or changes lane, like it would be nice maybe why it did that, like, you know, like there could be a message that you know, we changed lane because there's perception that the driver in front of us is
erratic.
Exactly. So I think, but at the I would say very concretely, so and this is an area that would be very hard, and I think there are interesting opportunities that how you take this there's a lot of data that were used and they're processed by AI to make the recommendation, but can you actually pull out number one reason for that recommendation out of that ton of information?
Yeah.
And that is challenging, but it is doable. We've seen it happening in a certain domain, like Intello is doing that.
Yeah,
I've
with
heard,
the context. Yeah.
Yes, I've heard from Gaurav, like very interesting use cases, Gaurav Kataria, that you can just inject an extra piece of information and it makes things much more understandable.
Yeah, and that context can make the AI or the new technology feel that much more digestible, like that much more that you can trust it because, okay, my human cognitive ability, right, has essentially looked at this and said, yep, checks out, like that makes sense. And I feel like for so long, these, algorithms and pieces of AI, for example, Google, like it just works the way it works and that's the secret sauce. So it is kind of that fine line between, okay, this is secret and proprietary, but at the same time, we have to show you that this is working and you can confirm this outside of saying, just trust us, right?
Yes.
Absolutely. Well, very cool. Mohsen, I think we're kind of running up on our time here. But I've really enjoyed this conversation. And I think, in short, the takeaway is that, machine learning and AI might be scary, but at the same time, it's enabling, it's empowering. And if we can understand it even more through the use of context, then we can really leverage it to its full potential. So I've really enjoyed our conversation and, wish you the best.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I really enjoyed being here. This is an amazing summit.
Perfect. Well, thanks you so much. Listeners, looking forward to talking to you next time. Have a great one.